Hi, everybody. This is Jimmy, and you're reading with Jimmy. And this is an interpretation by Jimmy of A&P by John Updike, which you should have read. You should have read the analysis, and now I'm gonna give you my interpretation. Sammy, the narrator, talks to us about an event that happened to him in his life. Now, these events, the event that happened to him, events happen to all of us, right? But this is a first-person narrator named Sammy narrating to us, the reader. Of course, it was written by John Updike, but we're not going to worry about that because remember, this is our opportunity to understand someone inside a story telling us a story that happened to him. So we have the opportunity to see Sammy's point of view, exactly what happened according to Sammy. But being a first-person narrator, don't forget that you have to really understand that those narrators are like us. They could have flaws. He could be bending the truth. And we're reading a story about Sammy, a 19-year-old checkout guy at the A&P. This was written in the 60s, published in the New Yorker magazine. And we're reading actually a wonderful, actually a semi-sad, tragic event that he takes a stand. I call this taking a stand. So why did Sammy quit? That's the central question. What was Sammy's motivation to quit? Did he have to quit? When offered by his manager to take it back, he didn't take it back. He didn't. He just quit. So, as mentioned in the analysis, if you read the analysis with me, is that if you ask Google the question, you're going to get a bunch of really bad information. For example, at the end of the story, Sammy chooses to quit, and it symbolizes the love presented by Sammy to Queenie. If you read the same story I did, whoever wrote this analysis that Sammy loves Queenie, with respect, is full of doo-doo. There's no evidence that Sammy was in love with Queenie. He calls the kids cute. He's above this. He's looking at them in their display. They're showing off in the A&P with their bare feet and their bathing suits as something cute. He's not in love with them. Another one says, I quit primarily because he wants the girls to overhear him. That's not why he says he quits. He says that's why he said it, hoping the girls would hear him. But even if they did, they continue through the electric eye, go to their car, and they're off by the time this whole episode concludes. But that's not why he quit. He didn't quit because he wanted them to overhear him. You understand? The person who interpreted this, the gesture loses resonance when he realizes they didn't notice it. It gains resonance because Langle offers him, did you say something? And he said, I quit. It gains resonance. If he said, no, I didn't say anything, then it loses resonance. You know what resonance is, right? Resonance, resonate. If he says again, I quit, when Langle gives him the chance, did you say something? He gains resonance. So whoever wrote this review is full of doo-doo. Another one, and I'm not going to belabor this, Sammy knows that quitting his job will eventually make his life a lot worse, but he sticks to his decision because he doesn't like what the store has to offer him. When Sammy walks out of the store, he is not leaving behind the job, but also a rigorous state of mind related with the A&P. He's leaving bureaucracy, or, he talks about juvenile policy. Policy is what, they want. Juvenile delinquency is what everybody else wants. He's taking a stand. He's not taking a stand because he doesn't like the policies of the A&P. He's been working there for quite a while. He knows that cash register like the back of his hand. He plays games in his mind. The aisles are like a pinball machine. He's not bored. He's entertaining himself, right? He's a smart kid. Sammy's a smart kid. But he's not leaving because he's disappointed with what the store has to offer him. That's not why he quit. So these are all wrong. Sammy does, etc. Examining the evidence within the story proves none of this is really the truth. He doesn't love Queenie. His gesture, once you begin a gesture, is the evidence of his determination. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, once you begin a gesture, it's fatal not to carry it through. is one of the key laws of life, which Jimmy learned this many years ago when he first read this story. That one line in the story rang true in Jimmy's life. We'll talk about that. The A&P is just that. It's a corporation where he worked, but he didn't quit fight the profile where he wanted to work. He didn't quit fight. He didn't fit in. He was an outsider. He was somewhat of a rebel because he quits. He quits on principle. So let me start the interpretation with Newton, human nature, and Sammy. Isaac Newton was a mathematician. If you've ever seen him pictured in things, it's usually he's looking at an apple falling because he discovered, quote unquote, gravity. But these things are known as Newton laws. They're the laws of physics. Basic laws of human nature are also contained in what Newton found out. What are you talking about, Jimmy? He was a mathematician. Right, but let's think about human nature and Newton's law for a moment. For example, people today are fond of saying actions have consequences. You hear this every day if you watch the news or something. Well, actions have consequences. Really? Are you kidding me? The first Newton law, way back when, here's when he lived, right? 1642 to 17. Way back then, his first law said that for every action in nature, there is an equal and opposite reaction, or for every action, there's a reaction. Duh. Of course, actions have consequences. Everything you do, ladies and gentlemen, everything you do, you may not know what the reaction is to what you just did, but I assure you there's a reaction. I assure you. Someone's watching you, an observer perhaps, if you believe in Heisenberg's theories, but everything you do has a consequence. Everything you do has a reaction. So this has been true since time began. If you hit somebody, you're likely to be hit back maybe, right? There's reactions to your actions, and then actions upon those actions, and so on. So Sammy's story is a reaction to an action. This time the girls walk into the store with bathing suit, and Sammy quits. They walk in, Sammy takes a stand and quits. There's a bunch of stuff that happens in between, herring, snacks, all that. But the thread of actions and reactions should be studied carefully if you want to understand why he quit. In other words, you have to figure out the action that caused. Oh, typo. Jimmy has a typo. Can we fix that? Let's see. Caused his reaction, right? What caused his reaction? I'm going to suggest respectfully the word decent, but we'll get to that. Newton's first law is another example, right? An object at rest remains at rest, and an object in motion remains in motion at constant speed in a straight line unless acted on by an unbalanced force. An object will stay at rest unless acted on by some other force. A cue ball, a ball on a pool table will stay at rest unless another ball hits it. And if you study physics, there's an argument that they don't even touch. But I'm not going to go into that. People remain at rest unless acted on by some other force. They move in a certain direction unless acted on by some other force. This is very important. I don't know why I didn't highlight that. People remain at rest. Sammy would have, if those girls did not walk into the A&P that day, Sammy perhaps would still be checking out people at the A&P the next day. But because those girls walked in, he quit. That action caused his action, his reaction. So Sammy would have remained watching the sheep without those girls walking. Do you understand what I'm talking about? The girls were the force that acted on Sammy, and the rest is history. So Sammy knew what he was doing, that he was quitting. And it wasn't an arbitrary action. It wasn't done because he wanted to impress the girls. That's not why this guy quit. And there's evidence that he thought about doing it. And here's the evidence. After L'Engle asks him if he ran the girls up purchase out, Sammy says, I said no, but it wasn't about that I was thinking. When L'Engle asked him, did you ring them up yet? And he says no, he wasn't thinking about whether he rang them up or not. What was he thinking about? It wasn't about that I was thinking. Don't you hate pronouns? It. What is it? It. It wasn't. That. What was he thinking about? What do you think? What do you think he was thinking about? Respectfully, he was thinking about what he was about to do. He was thinking about taking an action. Well, Jimmy, how can you prove that? Read the story. He clearly narrates this. Does he exaggerate sometimes? Well, we're in his imagination, right? His descriptions of the girls are they're just he's a 19-year-old kid, right? He's 19 years old describing these girls. But he's also a thinker. He calls the people sheep. We're all sheep sometimes, right? We follow others, right? Is he a sheep or is he a shepherd? Anyway, he's thinking about what he's going to do. He wants to do something. And the second time he rings up the purchases, he passes the money to the girl, all the time thinking. What was he thinking about? What was he thinking about? He was thinking about winning. This was the moment, perhaps the moment he was waiting for. Subconsciously, we want to do things. Sometimes we never do them, but then suddenly opportunity knocks, the door opens, and we do them. His whole narrative, the choice of words and how he describes the girls, the A&P, all suggest someone who doesn't make split-second. This is not a hip shot. This is not a split-second decision. In fact, his philosophy, once you begin a gesture, it's fatal not to go through with it, tells me, Jimmy, and should tell you, audience, this reveals someone who thinks deeply about the things around him. And all you have to, and I'm not going to read all these comments, just go back and study them. I'll pick a random one. You never know for sure how girls' minds work. She came down a little hard on her heels, as if she didn't walk in her bare feet that much. These are observations I would suggest that are not typical of a 19-year-old kid, right? Would you agree with that? He's educated. He talks about Salem. He calls the woman that caught him not ringing it up a witch, and then he talks about Salem. Those two words are connected. Well, Jimmy, I didn't know that about Salem. Well, you better educate yourself. Because remember, illusions, this is called an illusion, Salem. The word Salem, stop a minute. Language, literature, great classic literature. Jimmy, are you saying this is a classic? Yes. Why? How can you say that? Are you saying it's like Shakespeare? No, it's a classic. Why? John Updike's dead. And he wrote this short story. And I only study dead people, right? Why is it a classic? Look at how he writes this. Anybody can relate to this story. You can only appreciate the story if you know about Salem, the witch trials in Salem. That's called an illusion in literature. Language charged with meaning. Send me an email. You've heard me if you listen to my analysis and my readings. You know who said what literature, great classic literature is. It's language charged with meaning. This one word, Salem, emphasizes the word witch. That is not typical. I invite you to go out tomorrow, talk to your friends, and say, do you know what happened in Salem in early America? What? Isn't that a cigarette, Salem? Okay, take one more. The longer her neck was, the more of her there was. Ooh, that's a true sentence, right? She's got a prim face. Prim, right? Prim. There was no doubt this jiggled them. A few house slaves in pin curls looked after her, pushing her, right? Poor kids. I began to feel sorry for them. They couldn't help it. He's not in love with these girls. These girls are just there. They give him the opportunity to take a stand. He didn't look for this to happen, but when it happened, he didn't run from it. He had the chance to run from it. When L'Engle says, what did you say? That was Sammy's moment. And this would have been a very different story if he said nothing and went back to, the cash register. But he didn't. In fact, if he went back to his cash register, it'd be kind of a boring story, wouldn't it? Not only that, it wouldn't show you the philosophy once he began a gesture. But look at this sentence, that poor kids, they're kids to him. He's 19-year-old. He's 19 years old. And he's calling these girls kids. I don't know how old these girls are. They could be younger than him. They could be his age. But they're kids to him. I began to feel sorry for them. They couldn't help it. What is it? You know what it is? They couldn't help what? Showing off. That's what they're in that store for, to draw attention to themselves. And boy, do they do a good job at that. I thought that was so cute. See, there's the word again. These are his observations. I felt how hard the world was going to be to me hereafter. That's an astute observation, because you don't just quit your job in those days, and perhaps these days. He didn't like my smiling. As I say, L'Engle doesn't miss much. So Sammy was smiling when L'Engle was reaming out the girls about not coming in, with anything on except bathing suits and bare feet. Sammy was smiling. All of a sudden, I slid right down her voice, right? He goes down into her voice. Policy, etc. Then if you examine the dialogue between Sammy and Stokely, oh, Daddy, is it done? Oh, darling, they're talking. And then there's location of the town. This is why I'm telling you, he didn't quit for any other reason. He took a stand. He's in the location of the town itself, and it's in the middle of the town, congregational church, etc. Aristotle's golden mean, right? Golden mean. We talked about this in the analysis. It's the middle road. It's not too far left, too far right. It's in the middle. Aristotle taught you want to be safe. You want to be, you want to stay safe. Stay in the middle. Don't go to extremes. If you're going to drink, stay in the middle. Don't drink to excess, and don't not drink. Maybe you don't want to drink, but stay in the middle, right? Don't do anything out of bounds. Another way to look at this interpretation of what I'm suggesting is just look at the dialogue only. So dialogue is sometimes helpful when you just look at the dialogue and to figure out the true motivations, take out Sammy's narrative, take out his first person narrative, and just look at the dialogue as narrated by Sammy. Girls, this isn't the beach. Queenie blushes, though she made a blush of summer there. My mother asked me to pick up a jar of herring snacks. That's all right. This isn't the beach. We weren't doing any shopping. We just came in for one thing. That makes no difference. We want you decently dressed when you come in here. We are decent. Girls, I don't want to argue with you. After this, come in here with your shoulders covered. It's our policy. Sammy, have you rung the purchase up yet? No. I say, I quit. Did you say something, Sammy? I said, I quit. I thought you did. You didn't have to embarrass them. It was they who were embarrassing us. I said, fiddly-do. I don't think you know what you're doing, what you're saying, Sam, L'Engle said. I know you don't, but I do. You're going to feel this for the rest of your life. You see what I'm saying? This is the key dialogue of why Sammy quits. You didn't have to embarrass them. You didn't. There's ways to correct situations that are your policy, and there's other ways. If you're a manager in the world, there's ways you can correct behavior. L'Engle was trying to change behavior of these girls according to the policy. Was it the A&P policy? I don't know. I never read the policy. But generally, no shirt, no shoes, no service. That was the sign when Jimmy was growing up in every restaurant and in every store Jimmy ever went to. No shirt, no shoes, no service. They just didn't want, feet carry disease, right? Feet do carry disease. So, your life, Sammy's life, L'Engle's life, all of the rest are characters. And characters, your lives are comprised of moments. And every moment offers us an opportunity, a door opening and a door closing. You may not see the door. You may not say, did Sammy see this? He didn't see it at first. All he saw is three girls walking in. And then it escalated. The minute L'Engle showed up, that moment escalated. He escalated the moment, whether or not it's the policy or not, but he escalated it, and Sammy reacted to the escalation, right? So you have moments like this in your life. Sometimes you notice them, sometimes you don't. Did Sammy have to do this? No. Sammy didn't have to quit. Of course he didn't, but he did. That's the key to literature. You study how people lead their lives and how to lead your own. This is a lesson in quitting. If you're going to quit, you better accept the consequences, and life's going to be hard. If you got fired, have you ever been fired? Jimmy's been fired 3 times. The first time he was fired, it was devastation. He's never been fired. He was fired 2 days before. He was a teacher. 2 days before school started, he got fired. You can't get a job 2 days before school starts. They're all taken up by other teachers. That was the moment. The second time Jimmy got fired, it was easy because he already had a job in his back pocket. He had experienced being fired. And the third time he got fired was absolutely perfect because he already had his life planned out and he went into motion. I'm just telling you. Okay? The thing about Sammy is his ability to think outside the moment. It's as if he has a character in a play watching himself to take a stand. Taking a stand often comes at a price. I don't care what stand it is. I don't care who you are, what you believe. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is that there's a price you're going to pay for taking a stand. It might be a small price. It might be a huge price. The first time Jimmy was fired, that was an action against Jimmy for no reason. That's a long story. He immediately got 3 part-time jobs, and it changed the course of his life. So sometimes when doors close on you, not like you quit. Sometimes those are opportunities disguised. If it wasn't for that first firing, I'm telling you right now, I would not be talking to you now. I could see the threads of the actions and inactions since then of everything that happened in my life. These are these moments I was telling you about. So when you take a stand, it comes at a price, right? Taking a stand means stop. Whoops, typo. Let's fix that. Can we fix that? Let's change that. Where it is. We want to type. Where we type. We don't want to type. All right, stop. This is stop. Assert an opinion or a viewpoint to defend your viewpoints, right? The price that people pay to do that, right? Stop, assert an opinion and a viewpoint. The price people pay for taking stand sometimes goes unnoticed. You don't even know you're paying the price until later. In the case of Sammy, the effect of that, taking the stand, is immediate. So should he have quit? Would you have quit? Would you have quit over the word decent and having that girl being embarrassed? Right? This is a morality play, actually. This is a morality story. It's about power. It's around the word decent. The word means marked by moral integrity, kindness and goodwill. Decent, moral integrity. Jimmy, what's that? Do you have integrity? In this case, moral modifies integrity. What kind of integrity? Moral integrity. What's integrity? Trustworthiness, incorruptibility to agree. Boy, can't we use some integrity these days? Can't we? Come on. Can't we? We can use some integrity these days, I think. Morals change. Of course they change. So let's discuss morality for a moment. There's also, there's lots of opinions. What is moral? What is right? What is wrong? But morality does shift. For example, in Sparta, if you were caught stealing, you were punished, not because you stole, but because you got caught. Stealing is a crime, right? It's not good. You shouldn't steal, because if you steal, then someone can steal from you and you should shut up. In any case, if you believe stealing is not good, in Sparta, it was perfect because they were training their people to be soldiers, massive, just unbelievable, massive soldiers, right? Tough soldiers. So they encouraged stealing. But if you got caught, that's why you were punished, because you got caught, not because you stole. So morals change. And we're not here to talk about morals, right? We're here to talk about Sammy's integrity. He quit. He made a stand. You didn't have to embarrass them. What's embarrassment mean? You feel awkward, self-conscious, ashamed. She blushed. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have no shame, don't worry about this. You will never blush. Jimmy was at a wake one time for a certain, it was a Serbian wake. And it went down to the basement and they served plum brandy. Now, if you've ever drinking Serbian plum brandy, you'll relate to the story. Now, if you haven't, you won't relate to the story. So they went down, they all poured very little, tiny, not regular shot glasses, even smaller, half of a shot glass in little thimbles. And they poured 10 of these. There were 10 people, 10 guys standing around. And they said, we'd like to toast to the dead guy. Okay. So they poured his brandy. Jimmy takes a thimble of the brandy and they look around, they go, Nasrovia, whatever, okay. They toasted the dead guy. Jimmy puts down the thimble in one shot. It's a thimble. It's easy. And they all gather around me. They had violated my space. They came to my face. All 9 guys came near me and they were watching me as the sweat started pouring down my head from this brandy or whatever the hell it was. I started sweating profusely. And they were all looking at me because they were not sweating. They were obviously used to it. And they were all looking at me and they go, there is no shame. So I learned to drink plum brandy in thimbles without shame for sweating profusely because, boy, did that react. Anyway, what is shame? Shame is when she was blushing. L'Engle embarrassed her. And so Sammy goes, you didn't have to embarrass them. And he says, no, they were embarrassing us. Well, there's no evidence that L'Engle turned red. There's no evidence that the other shoppers were embarrassed. Anyway, it's a powerful expression, I think, Jimmy thinks, of self-sacrifice. What is his moral position? What does integrity have to do with his quitting? Well, from the evidence, once the girls were gone, because they're gone, the only reason he did this is to take a stand over this embarrassment. You know what, Jimmy, I'm going to send you an email, and I think maybe he just wanted to quit. Well, you know what? Maybe he did. And maybe this was his opportunity to quit. Maybe. But the evidence of the story suggests that it's over the word decent. That the embarrassing the girls, they were just cute kids. And ladies and gentlemen, there's ways to handle this, right? He doesn't have to do it publicly. If you've ever been a manager and you want to discipline an employee, the first rule of disciplining an employee is don't do it in public. Don't do it in public. Because then you're doing it for the audience, which is not good. A lot of times you do things because people are watching you. Sammy said, I quit loud enough for the girls to hear. He needed an audience, but he didn't care if he had the audience because he had his chance to take it back. And he didn't. He followed through. Once you begin a gesture, and remember, he was thinking about this before he pulled the trigger. Once you begin a gesture, it's fatal not to carry it through. I have a couple stories here. I can touch on them. One of the jobs I had was a copywriter when I got fired as a teacher. And the deal I made was to come in at a certain $500 a month for 3 months. I was working for $500 a month and then double it. And then within a year, bring me back to what I was making as a teacher. Remember, this is a long time ago. $16,000 a year. Jimmy, how can you live on that? Jimmy's an old guy. And I assure you, if you needed to live on $16,000, you could do it. In any case, I made the deal with the boss. It came time. The year came and went. It came time for them to be true to their word, to bring me back to 16 because I was only making 12. I challenged the power, And the next day, the ad was in the paper for my job. The ad was run in the Chicago Tribune for my job. I went in with the other copywriters. There were two of us. We went into the HR lady. She was the office manager. Great. She wore a beehive hairdo. I can see her right now, smoking a cigarette. In those days, that was permissible. And we demanded to know who this was. And Bill, the older guy, thought it was him because he was too old. The other guy my age thought it was him because he had a big mouth and often challenged the boss. And she said, "It's you, Jimmy. It's you." And I go, of course I knew it was me. I knew it was me when I went in there with these guys because I showed him the ad. I said, "Look." And the old guy thought, "No, it's me." And he started, "It's not you. Don't worry about it, Bill. It's me." And I said to the office manager, "What do you mean it's me?" And I said, "Why?" And she said, "The boss thinks you're not heavy enough." And Jimmy, being prepared for the moment, said, well, I'll gain some weight. She said, "Get out of here." She said, "You could stay here as long as you need until you find another job." And there's the clue. That's the clue. By the way, I was very good at what I did because I learned to be a copywriter after I got fired as a teacher. In any case, that was where we took a stand. I took a stand, challenged power, and got beat back. Ladies and gentlemen, anytime you challenge power, you're going to get beat back. So if you begin that gesture to challenge power, right, it's fatal not to carry it through. The sign story is different. It's a long story. I'm not going to bore you with it, but it's basically I defended a kid in school, and that was my first firing 2 days before the school started. I defended a kid with the principal, not defended physically, but verbally, and he fired me 2 days before school started. I often thought of writing him a letter thanking him for firing me, but that was my first firing. It was a wake-up call on the world of power, and I felt kind of like Sammy. In any case, hundreds of other stories. So the question is, if Sammy is not a sheep, he's not. What is he? Is he a shepherd? Or what is he? The thing to do is to think before you act, to draw your integrity boundaries. We all have these integrity boundaries. If you have no integrity, get out of here. Don't even talk to me. No, you can talk to me. But what is integrity? Is integrity part of being human? Isn't it? Isn't it? Like Sammy's philosophy, once you lose your integrity, ladies and gentlemen, you can't get it back. What does that mean, Jimmy? If Sammy did not say, "I quit" the second time, if he said, "I didn't say anything" to Lango, he would be diminished as a human being. It would diminish him. It would diminish him. Taking a stand is making tough choices. Sometimes those choices have huge unexplained and unexpected consequences. You take the wrong turn at the wrong moment, you know what can happen, right? That's called an accident. He didn't quit by accident. This is not an accident. It's intentional. Intentional. So before you begin a gesture, it's fatal. Remember, if you begin it, it's fatal if you don't carry it through. So make sure you think before you act. You've been reading with Jimmy. This is Jimmy. Thanks for listening. My interpretation. I expect hundreds of emails. I'm kidding. Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com. Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.